There's a monster in the woods that never really stayed in the woods. It escaped into comic books, horror games, creepypastas, and internet art. Today, if you ask people on the streets, they most likely know what you're talking about. And of course, I'm talking about the Wendigo. See, um, I am your favorite space monkey, probably the only space monkey you do and will ever know. And I'm playing this game for a specific reason. Because this game is said to have, it's supposed to be based off of Wendigos. If you want to know what a Wendigo is, um, the Wendigo is this tale older than any modern horror, older than the internet, and older than the image most people have in their head. The real history comes from indigenous oral traditions as a warning. Wendigo comes from the Algonquian-speaking people across the Great Lakes, northeastern United States. Of course, that would be Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, those areas, and several parts of Canada because the Great Lakes stretch into Canada. And those traditions, it is deeply tied to the long, harsh winters they have, in which those winters they would starve. It's um, they would starve. A lot of them would die from the frost. Hypothermia. Um, never being able to really grow anything. It almost seemed like the land was cursed. And of course, that makes everyone's like, oh no, we're cursed. We got to move lands. And then moving required food, and they never had that. But it also comes from an aspect that the Native Americans seem to understand well, and that is the spiritual and more or less so it's the spiritual and the moral side of the story. The Wendigo is said to be a representation of greed, cannibalism, and when someone loses their humanity, is they are said to turn into a Wendigo. Now, I assure you that you're not gonna become a Wendigo if you decide to take an extra dollar from your friend. It was more or less the fact that in the Native Americans, the ancient Native Americans times, the fact that these cold, harsh, long winters they would have to endure, everyone had to work together. There was no one person cheaping out, not doing their job. It was one whole community. Now, nowadays, you really don't need to be around people. We survive on our own. But one person didn't do their job, the rest of them starved. The rest of them felt the effects. One person didn't go out and tried to find food before the winter time. That's less food the rest of the tribe has to endure. But give me a second. European accounts also hold the Wendigo stories because because they tried wiping these stories from the Native Americans, saying it isn't real, and then experiencing almost like an effect. Like you'd have the people who didn't believe, and then like we do now, something would happen, and then they would be like, "Oh crap, why is this happening?" And it would happen for because the Native Americans were warning them, and they were, "Hey, if you try to take more than what you deserve, you try to take our land, you try and hurt us in any way, you will become or face the wrath of these creatures, these monsters." There's, and of course, you 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 wouldn't believe them. It's not like it's how people go to different countries and they're like, "Hey, don't do this, don't go out at night, blah blah blah," and then they're like, "Oh, nothing bad's gonna happen. It's just a story." Like if you went to Japan, you would not really listen to like their traditions on um the yokai. unless you like watch the yokai show. Then you'd probably believe them because that show was goated. Comment down below if you've seen that or anything. But the Wendigo was they had the spiritual aspect. It also had the moral aspect. It had more of an effect on the younger people of the tribe because the older you get, the more you realize your role, the more you want to do. But as like humans nowadays, you're young, you want to get out of the house, you want to leave, you want to go. So it was a story that they would tell their kids, hey, make sure to help out the entire tribe, or you'd become this ungodly creature. Well, the creator would not forgive you for what you did and turn you into this horrible monster. You would slowly transform. And it would, hopefully, the job was, it was supposed to terrify the kids into actually listening and doing what they were told. But, you know what I mean? I'm a teenager myself, and sometimes when people tell me what to do, I kind of just I get mad at them for telling me it. So there would be their times, and then you'd get warned. I don't do that again, or this bad will happen to you. So the Wendigo sometimes was just a human. It didn't take any supernatural form. It would just be someone they banished into the woods all by themselves. Sometimes they would turn into this grotesque monster. There was so many different transformations it could take. It depended on the tribe because every different tribe has their own version of this. It's kind of like the Skinwalker. Um, the Skinwalkers can be considered a version of a Wendigo. They tell the same story, greed, inhumanity, stuff like that. But when winter in the northern regions where these stories developed could be extremely brutal. Food could be scarce, isolation could be an extremely deadly thing, and in the setting, these stories start to make a lot more sense because now, now you have people not a part of the tribe, people who aren't aren't with the tribe. They're out trying to hunt for food, and they don't come back for several days. And it's just now you don't have the warriors protecting the place. Um, it's shaped hunger makes perfect sense. It reminds people what happens when survival stops being communal and starts becoming more on the selfish aspect. People nowadays, everyone's nowadays extremely selfish. And I won't lie, I have my selfish tendencies, but it's not mean I'm going to, go around taking a bite out of everybody I see, or I'm not going to turn into this deer high human hybrid like it's shown in media, because that's not what it really was. Of course, the Wendigos is often read as a lesson about balance and responsibility. The individual people would have their own, like, I guess, their own sightings nowadays. We Oh crap. Oh crap. Oh crap. One down. Yeah, we running back to camp. We running back to camp. Sorry. So these responsibilities, this warning about behavior if you take more than what you need, if you hoard. A lot of people had issues of hoarding. You want a little more grain, so towards the end of the winter you're not starving constantly. Issues like that. There we go. Now I'm healing. And then the individual survives by respecting the group survives by restraining hunger. When the balance breaks, something monstrous enters the world. Now, there's the modern misunderstanding. The modern pop culture Wendigo is a very different creature. The antlers, the deer skull, the emancipated body, the long limbs, they are now dominant image of online Wendigo horror. And a very, very popular part of the horror genre is wendigos. I 100% would say if you go onto TikTok or you go onto YouTube, I don't know, probably not Instagram. Instagram's a whole different thing. You probably search up horror. You could probably find a lot on wendigos and stories of those nature. But people often mix the Wendigo up with generic forest monsters aesthetics, or treat it as just another cryptid. But the original stories are not about wildlife horror; they're about cultural and spiritual mourning, rooted in Pacific indigenous traditions. This distinction matters because flattening the Wendigo into a standard monster can erase the meaning that made the Wendigo such a powerful story in the beginning. So making sure that you're not telling it in the way of, oh hey, Wendigo, it's nothing. You do this, it's just stay out the woods. Can't get you if you're not in the woods. Would be misinterpreting the story as a whole. There's also the history of outsiders turning indigenous beliefs into different things. That's a whole nother issue, which could be a whole nother video topic. Of I can do a whole video on misunderstood and misused horror topics, or not horror. Yeah, well, I guess it'd be considered horror topic, but more or less like indigenous cryptids and creatures that have been misunderstood and trying to I guess set them right. Because I am indigenous myself. I'm not like that heavy. I A lot of people probably wouldn't even consider me indigenous. I'm like probably like 5% indigenous. Somewhere I know I'm definitely not like somewhere anywhere heavy. Like I won't be like 3,000%. Not 3,000. Whoa, I wouldn't be like 30%. Probably less than 10 if anything. A lot of my teachers like to say that I look indigenous. And of course, I don't, unless I know for sure, I'm not gonna call myself like, yeah, I'm Native American. I know these stories. I'm gonna correct you. It's gonna be like, yeah, my family has a lot of Native American stories and stuff. Well, I might die. Yikes. We come from a long line of natives, native to Mississippi. That's where I originate from. I live up north, so the Wendigo's kind of my thing. So when we talk about these modern depictions, widely discussed, wildly discussed amongst media and different outlets, we think it's just could be one. It's kind of cool. There's a bear hanging on a tree. We think the idea could also be considered psychosis. This term was used. This term was actually used to describe Native Americans who believed in Wendigos. They would call it. I think it was window psychosis. It's a real term. I'm probably butchering it horribly, but the Europeans would be like, "Hey, yeah, you got window psychosis. It's a really bad thing. We could fix you though. You just got to start believing in God." And that's horrible in itself, but forcing God down their throats even probably more horrible than telling them that they're insane for believing in creatures like the Wendigo. Their own creatures that they came up with. I'm dead by the way. I don't know if I can camp. I don't know if camping out here would save me. Almost serious group makes their way. Okay, that's good. And then they reshape it into a virtually intense in games, films, and online media slash art. It's considered something like unbeatable. It's almost like if you ever seen the movie The Ritual, where they're up in like the Swedish forest and they're and then they come across that the dead god or something like that. Sorry, almost started dying there. Yeah, they start bringing a lot more food. Where's the other one? I sprint everywhere, start running out of food. And it's almost a gaunt predator with antlers, the corpse-like face. If you think about it, it's almost weirdly enough, it almost resembles the Lich from Adventure Time. It has the horns, the skull face. It's the combination of wilderness death and human fragility. Yeah, fragility into one package. It feels almost ancient even when it isn't. That's probably why modern versions become so successful, is because you're terrified of something like that. It looks human but isn't. It's like it's the uncanny valley effect, which whole nother story on its own. Once again, I'll probably get into that later on. If you guys want to like see any of the uncanny valley, like if you guys have like any of the topics I talk about in here, if you want those videos like now, just comment down below which ones, and I'll probably start scripting them soon. And it's a shame because the older version is more interesting. In my opinion, I think as much as I love modern horror, to where you have um not everything's terrifying, but you have this just jump scares. It's really nice to watch, but the older stories, yeah, it's almost a shame because the older versions are a lot more interesting. A monster that teaches you respect, um, greed as memorable, and not just a monster that just chased people through the woods. The reason the Wendigo still resonates is that the ideas behind it is still real. Hunger still exists. Scarcity still exists. Greed still exists. People still take too much. They hoard resources and turn survival into a competition. Even outside, even outside of like, I guess, in those sense, it'd be like third world countries that have these issues, like a lot more than like richer countries, and I'm not gonna get into that. In my opinion, every country suffers from this type of stuff. Just third world countries don't have a lot of food. Um, uh, it's I'm not. Yeah, I feel like I should just stop talking. But every arrow remakes the Wendigo in its own image, shape. Some of it's a lot more spiritual. Some of it's more on the inhuman side. Some of it's just there. It's like, oh hey, yeah, the deer person. Once again, our generation, we turned it into this. This is 99 Nights in the Forest. It's supposed to have a Wendigo. Not No offense, not scary at all. It's just for background context because if you're like me, you're either playing a video game, you either already probably clicked off, or you're just kind of critiquing the way I'm playing this game. Can I break these yet? Yes. Which, go ahead, critique me. I've played this multiple times on the channel. I really like it. It's not the best version that I can think of for the Wendigo. There's definitely actual horror games, probably most likely out there that uh, portrays this so much better. It's also the RAM waking up. In my opinion, there's a lot more games that I know, but I don't have the money to buy those games. I hate these bullets, bro. I'm making so many people mad with the way I just did that. Sorry, guys. I want to try and find food real quick, so I don't have to cut the video in such a weird way. recharge the flashlight. Really, one morsel. Look around. Also, I want to find them so I can show you guys like up close and personal of what this so-called creature looks like. It's nothing like, oh, hey, no, I did have food, sweet. But to modern horror fans, it is a shape with antlers and a hollow stare. But underneath all those versions is the same core idea: a person or society can become monstrous what hunger allows to rule everything. So the next time you see Wendigo in a game, a movie, or an illustration, remember that antlers are not the whole story. To real Wendigo, the real Wendigo is older, deeper, and more human than that of any story, any modern story of horror. Um, when community breaks down, when the hunger becomes too unbearable, and when force becomes the consuming factor of anything, you have to take it by force. Holy crap, I might die. Yep, I might die. I might just run. Yeah, I'm just gonna run. Yep. Alright, guys, enjoy your day. Please subscribe, like, and go to w.gg and use code SpaceTroop. See you in the next video.